Hi there. Thanks for listening in to Henderson Performance Radio. And today you get to hear from another amazing powerlifting athlete. She is going to be taking the platform during prime time on Saturday night at this year's USAPL Raw Nationals, which is just a couple weeks away as of this recording. Her name is Sammi Johnson, but you may know her from Instagram as No Pants Sammi. This episode is a deep dive on all things training, coaching, and her story going from the physique and bodybuilding world into achieving great success as a powerlifting athlete. And if you happen to live in the North California area, Sammi definitely has a special announcement just for you, obviously, that we will get into towards the end of the interview. Now, even if you aren't into powerlifting and throwing around heavy weights, Sammi's story and advice is highly valuable for anybody out there listening. So I know that you will get a lot out of this one. It was super fun to record and be part of the conversation. So with all that being said, here is Sammi Johnson. All righty, we are on the line with Miss Sammi Johnson. How you doing, Sammi?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So, as we were just talking about, before we hit it any further, tell us where the no pants in No Pants Sammi comes from.
Okay, so when I started in fitness, I did bikini and figure, and it just wasn't right for me. I had a lot of body issues. I dealt with an eating disorder. And so when I switched over to powerlifting, I actually gained quite a bit of weight, but I felt more comfortable and confident in my skin and who I was as a person than I had ever before. And so I started seeing on social media just all these like little tiny girls posting all these like selfies and bikinis. And I'm like, that's not realistic for the majority of us. Like people are looking at that and then feeling bad about themselves because they'll never look that way. And so I started posting pictures. And at that time, I think I was right around 198, 200. So I started posting pictures of myself in like, you know, a swimsuit or a sports bra and some chonies, and it just took off from there. And it started with like a hashtag, No Pants Sammi, No Pants Wednesday. So I did it on like a particular day. And it started to gain like popularity and people loved it. And so I eventually just decided to change my name to No Pants Sammi, and it stuck. So here we are.
Oh, very cool. Right on. Well, hey, more power to you. Someone like me probably couldn't get away with something like no pants, no anything, but right on. Well, that's cool. So you mentioned, obviously, getting your start, I guess, on the serious side of fitness with physique and the bodybuilding side. How did that kind of come about? What was your first in on kind of taking that particular side of things with your training?
Yeah, so I was an athlete basically my whole life, rodeo, basketball, softball. I played college basketball, and so that kind of got me into the lifting side of things. And when that was over, I was just kind of like, I was like a general gym goer, but I was like a hardcore general gym goer. So
Right.
it's like going to the gym every day, lifting, sometimes twice a day doing cardio. But I didn't understand what I was doing, but I was going. And so I actually started working at a gym, and I think it was 2011. And the guy that owned the gym was like a strongman, powerlifter, bodybuilder type dude. And he basically told me, if you work here, you have to compete, because they were all getting ready for a show for NPC in like 12 weeks. And I was like, all right, I'll do it if you coach me. And so he agreed. And so basically I started, it was like 2011 in December, and competed in my first bikini show in March of 2012. And so he trained me and prepped me through those 12 weeks. And it wasn't like lightweight, high reps. He trained me like a bodybuilder, powerlifter style. So it was, we were doing heavy squats, heavy dumbbell lunges, deadlifts. We were doing a lot of the power movements along with obviously cardio and dieting. And I just fell in love with the lifting aspect at that point. And so as I progressed through the shows, I knew I never wanted to stay in bikini because I felt so little and I felt weak. And I'm like, I don't enjoy that part. I enjoy being strong. I enjoy putting on muscle. So kind of throughout that time, I was going up in classes because I wanted to have more muscle. And at that point, I was in such a small town that powerlifting really wasn't even a thing. Like, I think now looking back, there was probably a few people that powerlifted, but not at my gym. And so when I ended up moving to California for a job, I gave up all the competing part of it for the NPC and just started kind of going to the gym in San Jose. And actually, that's where I ended up meeting the people that got me into powerlifting.
Wow, very cool. I guess probably from a competition side, now granted, when it comes to bodybuilding, physique, and all that, I have not only no experience, but like no real opinion or anything. But it seems to me like one of the biggest shifts, I guess, in approach when it comes to the competition side is obviously the bodybuilding and physique side has quite an air of subjectivity that goes into the judging. And of course, powerlifting is the weight is the weight, a number is a number. So how did you kind of reconcile training in the kind of gray zone of a judge's subjective opinion?
So when I came into it, I had absolutely no idea. When I went to my first show, I had no idea. And so I actually experienced it at my first show because I came in with a lot more muscle than a lot of the girls. I ended up placing, I think it was like 5th out of 12 girls. And when I look at the top 5 lineup, all the other girls were very soft, just kind of skinny. And I was more muscular. And so at that point, I saw that it depends on going and what the judges are looking for at that point. And so going through it again, I was really naive to everything, and I never went trying to look a certain way for judges. I just went in at the best of what I wanted to look. And it wasn't actually until I moved to California to work for a supplement company. And my boss actually is one of the top prep coaches in the world. He coaches top Olympians that are actually stepping on stage next weekend. And so in working for him and helping him do like different shows, you get to see the behind the scenes on everything. You get to see actually what really goes down behind the stage.
Right.
And with all of that, and it totally turned me off to that industry completely. And that was another reason why I decided to step away. It's a dirty, dirty industry for sure. And it was just something that I didn't agree with and I didn't want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, I mean, unfortunately, no track of competition is ever without its errors and its human faults. But, it kind of just gets into a weird gray zone where
absolutely,
the ends justifying the means. Who knows? That's obviously like a personal thing, but yeah. But in any case, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I never wanted anyone to tell me how I should look. Like if my hair's right, my makeup right, my suit's the right color, my butt's too small or too big, or I have too much muscle on my legs or whatever it is. I never wanted to adjust my body to what somebody else thought was ideal. That was nothing I ever wanted to do. And that was another reason why I didn't really enjoy that industry too much.
Yeah, right. So at that particular point in time, you came upon the sport of powerlifting. How did that happen?
So I joke that it was an accident, but it really wasn't. I was training at a Gold's Gym in San Jose, And there was a group of guys that were powerlifting there. They were older guys, and I would always watch them and just be like, oh, that looks so cool. Like, I want to do that. And I was deadlifting in the gym one day. It was like I had no shoes on. I was like deadlifting in my socks. It was like 225, and two of the guys, it was Dave and Thomas, came up to talk to me and just kind of asked me what I was training for, and then they invited me to come work out with them. And I agreed, and it was probably about a week later I started training with them. Well, as I started training with them, I realized that one of the guys used that line to talk to the pretty girls at the gym.
Of course.
And so I'm like, I'm the only one that agreed. So apparently that was a good choice for me to make. But yeah, so I agreed to start training with them. So there was four of us four of the guys and then me. And actually one of the guys would not address me personally for the first month, because he wasn't okay with me being a part of the group.
Oh, really?
He would never call me by my name. He nicknamed me Girl, because I was the only girl there. So, and he would ask one of the other guys, like, what does Girl want on the bar? What does Girl want next? And so it wasn't until I think I deadlifted maybe 405 or something. And then after that, I earned his respect. Basically, to him, I had to prove myself that I was serious and I was there to train, and I wasn't going to fuck up their training rotation. So, and then I stuck with them for about a year that I was with them training. Actually, it was a little bit more.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was your first meet in this timetable?
I did my first meet 12 weeks from the time that I started with them. So it was basically, wow. I jumped in, did my first meet in 12 weeks.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I competed 4 weeks later. So that was through USPA. Mm-hmm. I competed, and then 4 weeks later I competed at IPL Worlds in Vegas, which at that point I didn't know was a really stupid idea. And now that I'm experienced in it, I do realize that doing a meet and then 4 weeks later doing another one is not a good idea at all.
Yeah. Well, may or may not be the most optimal thing, but what was your rough training schedule looking like at that time?
So we trained 3 days a week at that time. And we had a squat, bench, and deadlift day. So I think we trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And at that point, they were old school geared lifters. So they mostly lifted single ply. So we actually did a combination of a 5-3-1 and a conjugate. So we used bands, we did box squats, we did board presses. So in the beginning, I did a lot of geared type lifting training, even though I wasn't in gear. Mm-hmm. But I went straight into classic raw when I first started training. So I went into wraps right away. I never competed raw until I switched to USAPL.
Gotcha.
Which is not common for people to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, when you were first kind of getting or I guess really when you jumped into the deep end with these guys, was there any particular lift that really shot up for you, or one that you particularly struggled with?
My deadlift went up really, really fast. And my bench was not good. Bench, I think most of us struggle with it, especially being taller with longer arms. My leverages suck for bench. So it's been a long process of figuring out what's best for me to get strong at that. But my bench was not fantastic in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But my deadlift was my strongest lift. My deadlift still is my strongest lift. So my squats they're getting there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after this kind of break-in period, where does your training go next, and what was the coaching or program situation?
So I stayed with them for it was a little over a year. And they had, after I did my first 2 meets, they switched to Wobble. So they were doing push-pull meets. And so I switched over with them. I ended up doing a Wobble meet, and I did deadlift only for single ply. And realized that I really wanted to go back to full power. So at that point, I realized that I was pretty decent at the sport. And I was like, all right, if I want to be the best, I got to train with the best. So I actually ended up hiring Brandon Lilly. And so I switched over from basically like a 5-3-1 conjugate to cube method. So I started with Brandon, I think it was in like probably September-ish, August, September of 2014. Mm-hmm. And so I went with him through 2 meets into Worlds. And then I wanted a coach that was more hands-on. I absolutely love Brandon, and me and him are very good friends to this day. But it was something for me that what I would do is every week, which is a lot of these big-time coaches do, is at the end of the week, you send them your weekly videos. Mm-hmm. And then they send you feedback on like Sunday and then send you your program. So it wasn't very hands-on. It wasn't very personal. And I realized for me that I needed something that was a lot more personal. And so I actually ended up hiring one of my really good friends who lives close to where I live. And I actually played hard to get with him for a very, very long time. So he was like just let me coach you. Like, I know I can get you super strong. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, no, not yet. I'm not ready. And finally going into the San Jose Fit Expo in 2015, I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. I said, you have 1 meet. I said, we'll see how that goes and then we'll move forward. And I went 9 for 9. I had the best meet of my life. And at that point, it wasn't even a question. It was like, all right, what's next? What are we doing? And so when I started with him, we did a similar cube method type style of training, but it had different variations and more volume than a standard cube method. Mm-hmm. So we ran, and with him, we ended up running that same type of training for about the next like year and a half, up until I did the U.S. Open at Gracie's gym in San Jose, or in San Diego. Cool. Yeah. And then that was in, 2016. And then I switched to USAPL, and my training completely took a 180 from there.
So obviously a combination of this guy's style, kind of his take on training, a little bit more, I guess, personalized approach. So were you guys meeting in person a lot?
So we met in person once in a while, but I would send him videos while I was training.
Gotcha.
So I would if I had like a 3x3 on a working set, I would send him my first triple. Mm-hmm. And then he would like immediately send me feedback of like, push your knees out or whatever it was that he saw that I needed to adjust inter-workout. So it's basically you're getting immediate feedback right away. So instead of, you do your squat session Monday and then you're getting feedback maybe Saturday, Sunday to go into the next week. So you're getting it right away and you're able to fix it immediately. So for me, that helped me advance so much quicker as a lifter. And that's actually something that I've taken into my coaching, is it's a very, very hands-on approach. And I realize that the athletes that are doing that and sending their videos on a regular basis are making a lot faster progress than the athletes who are not.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Really, I can imagine that helps contribute to the momentum of training, the inspiration and the motivation behind training.
Yeah. It's a lot more personal approach, which has helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So USAPL, 180 shift.
Yes.
What's going on? How so?
So before my training was basically I was squatting once a week, benching twice a week, deadlifting once a week. So when we switched over, I started squatting 3 times a week, benching 3 times a week, deadlifting twice a week. So the volume of everything and how often you're doing it, your frequency of the lifts increased drastically. And I basically, when we switched over, I had never raw squatted in competition before. So we were kind of sketchy about my depth on that switching over, because USAPL, everyone talks about how strict it is on depth and different things like that. So we completely revamped my squat for raw to make sure that my depth was there. which was probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever been through in my life, because I spent, 3 years or so of squatting and being a great squatter and doing all of this stuff and being strong at it. Then all of a sudden I have to completely revamp everything, and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So there was a lot of frustration that went into that. But I was worried that like my hips and my body was not going to really hold up with squatting 3 times a week and having the frequency so high. And I can't imagine squatting less than like 2 to 3 times a week now. Like if I went back to once a week, I don't think I would enjoy it. I've been doing it for so long that I love squatting all the time. I love having to, bench 3 times a week, deadlifting twice a week. You're able to do the main movements a lot more. And it's helped me a lot and got me a lot stronger, especially as a raw lifter.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all the more frequency, all the more volume,
yes.
On the recovery side, what's your approach? What are some of the things that are kind of most important to you on making sure that you're ready to hit it more days than you're resting?
I take full advantage of my rest days. I try not to do anything that's too strenuous to my body. So if I'm just hanging out with my dogs for that day, fantastic. Going to the grocery store, cool. But I try to make sure that I'm getting lots of sleep, and on my off days that I'm getting in my meals and all of my water. I don't necessarily do mobility on my off days. That's something that I do like pre-training. Mm-hmm. But if, something's tight, I'll stick a lacrosse ball on my back or lay on a foam roller just to make sure that next day going in, that I'm going to feel ready to go into that training session.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit before we get into kind of how you approach coaching, I'm curious, you were a presenter at the Girls Who Powerlift camp?
Yes. Camp Uplift.
Camp Uplift, right?
Yes.
What were some of the major talking points that you presented there?
So we split up into groups. I actually I was the squats person. So they came to me for squats. One of the other things that we did was talking about embarrassing moments in training. And one of the coolest things I think that all of us were able to talk about is one of the questions somebody had was basically like, what keeps you motivated to keep training to work hard? And so we all had our different reasons for it, which was super cool. And one thing for me was, I've talked about this a lot, is my grandma is struggling with Alzheimer's. She's been in an assisted living home for, oh my gosh, going on 6 years now, I believe. And she keeps fighting her disease. No matter what, no matter if she's in a downtime, uptime, like she just keeps fighting hard. And so for me, that's something that if she can fight that, like I can go to the gym every day and train my ass off and get as good as I can at what I want. Because if she can fight, I can fight. And if I have this ability to do this, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think perspective in life and in training is such an important thing, is such a powerful thing that some people some people have that drive. Unfortunately, it typically comes from a not so great situation.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
But, at the same time, it also just goes to show that a lot of your potential is kind of trapped up here.
Absolutely. Your body can do whatever you need it to, but if you can't mentally push yourself through a hard time, then you're not going to do well either in the gym or in life or anything.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pushing yourself through a tough time, we have got USAPL Nationals coming up here in just a handful of weeks.
Yeah.
What is your training and rough peaking schedule looking like?
So probably 2 weeks ago, which about 7 weeks out. So we do everything off of RPEs. Mm-hmm. And so about 2 weeks ago, all the RPEs kicked up. So everything starts to get heavier. and we actually kind of increased the volume a little bit. I'm hoping, I'm so hoping, my coach probably still wants to kill me, but I'm hoping that this week the volume will kind of start dropping, but definitely in the next week or two, we'll start dropping the volume. But again, the intensity just keeps going up. So right now we're working at about RP 8 of everything, which means that it's super challenging weights, but nothing you're grinding or failing. And so as we get closer, volume's going to drop. And then probably the last week or so, we'll get up into like RP 9 range. And I usually going into my meet in May, we did my last heavy deadlift single right around, I think it was like 11 days out in that way. And that's my last deadlift session at all until the meet. And that actually seemed to work really, really well. And so basically the last like week or so, I'm just benching and squatting. Mm-hmm. And towards the end, like I pretty much don't even have accessories. I go in and I do squats, I go in and I bench, and I maybe do one or two other things, and I'm out of there. And it's usually singles, doubles, triples. So a lot less volume, which I enjoy. And my last workout, I'm competing on Saturday. So our travel day is Tuesday, which normally would be my last training day. So my last training day will probably end up being Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at this point, certainly you are no stranger to competition.
No.
What do you like? There's so many kind of nitpicky questions that, one could ask about what goes on meet day.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that are like non-negotiables, I guess, in terms of preparation and maybe nutrition and mindset?
My non-negotiable, I stop traveling as I get closer. But going into like, are you talking about like meet day or like the week of or any specific time? Because there's a lot of variables that go into it.
Yeah, well, we'll say, so I guess I'm curious, like with the last few days before.
Basically, the last few days, like I chill completely. I don't go anywhere. I'll be in Orlando on Tuesday. So we have like a big house that we're staying at and stuff. So basically I'm going to chill. Like I won't leave the house. I'll just be relaxing, napping, watching movies, just getting my meals in, and kind of depending on how close I am to weight will depend on my food. But I'll cook all my food. And I'll pretty much just chill, and I'll make sure that I'll probably take some ZQuil or something, just to make sure that I'm sleeping those last few days a lot. Because sometimes when you start thinking about it, you start to get excited. I don't get nervous as much as I get like super amped about stepping on the platform. And I'm like, okay, just calm down. So those last few days, I completely chill and relax as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's people can tend to forget that it's not just about your muscle, but it's also about the state of your central nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're too jazzed up, and even in the whole week, leading up to competition, you can shoot yourself in the foot without even realizing it a lot of times.
Yeah. Yep. Go to warm up and everything feels heavy, and that's not a good feeling.
No.
No.
So on competition day, any particular strategy for your warm-ups or other kind of preparation throughout the competition day?
Basically, for me on meet day, I'm super chill. Meet day for me is fun. Like, I love meet day. It's the time to go and enjoy everything you've done. The work is done. All you have to do is just show up. And so for me, I stay very relaxed throughout the whole thing. I actually have like one or two people that come with me to almost every single meet, and they're there to make sure I'm kind of a princess on meet day. So it's like basically they make sure I don't have to worry about anything. I'm not worrying about food. I'm not worrying about water or, whatever it is that I need. Like they're there. And they keep me relaxed. They keep me joking. I keep people around me that keep me in that state. So that way, when I start warming up, for me, when I start warming up, that's when I start to get that it's almost like just a calm confidence. Like I know anything that's on that bar is going to get lifted. So when I step on that platform, I know I've done everything to prepare for this day, and all I got to do is just show up, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a stone cold champions mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And so when your name is called, Sammi, bar is ready, what's going through your mind?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Honestly, absolutely nothing at all. Because at that time, like, it's not that you black out, but it's just an unconscious competence of knowing that you know what to do. At that point, it's about feeling. You're not thinking, you're feeling the bar in your hands. You're feeling the bar dig into your back, the walkout where the pressure is. Like, everything at that point is just the feeling of what's going on. And throughout the lift, half the time, I don't even, like, once I rack the bar, I don't even know how it felt, what happened. Like, you don't pay attention to any of that. Mm-hmm. So bench sometimes is a little different because for me, it's very technical, and that's the one I struggle with. So that one becomes a little bit more technical for me, going into that setup, just making sure everything feels right, everything is good, the bar's touching my chest where it's supposed to. But other than that, there's not a whole lot that goes through my mind on meet day. It's just kind of like an internal, like, calm rage that's going on.
Yeah. Good. So, and for a lot of people, that may or may not come naturally.
Yeah.
When it comes to you coaching others, certainly through just the day-to-day gym grind and then going into competition, what does your general coaching approach look like?
On meet day or just training in general?
We'll say working backwards, meet day, and then going into the meat of the training.
So meet day, I have a lot of athletes that are in the area that I'm in that I'm able to actually go and coach them at meet. So that's super cool. So for those athletes, I bring probably 2 to 3 people with me to help because I usually have bigger groups that compete. And so my people that help me, basically our job and our goal is to make sure that the athletes have absolutely nothing to worry about. So they're showing up, all they need to do is warm up, and they have to lift. Other than that, they shouldn't be worrying about anything. They just need to save their energy, show up, lift. So my job that I do at meets is I figure out what works best for what athlete. So some athletes like to get hyped up, slapped, whatever, and I do that for them. Some of them need to be laughing beside the platform before they go step on because then they're calm. And that way when the bar is ready, they just walk on and they don't have the nerves. So kind of figuring out what athlete responds to what and being able to adjust that per athlete. For my athletes that are remote, I usually am either talking with them or whoever is going to be handling them to make sure like they have, again, everything to make sure they're not worrying about anything on meet day. So the week of the meet is usually a deload so they can chill. So again, talking to my athletes, making sure that they're not going into the gym, that they're not doing anything strenuous, that they're feeling good, that their body's starting to recover, and they're taking that seriously. During their deload workouts, just taking it easy. The week before is usually openers. So just kind of making sure that everything they're doing is right leading up to where I think they're going to be for like where their attempt should be and how they should be moving. With their training leading up to a meet, I get a lot more hands-on as in the off season. Like if they're, if they miss sending me a video for squats or something, like it's not the end of the world. But their last 5 weeks, I'm on them because I need to know, are you hitting the numbers? Is your body struggling? Can you lift more? Do we need to bump it down? So it's very dependent on how like your athlete's body is feeling and responding to the training. So that way you have the ability to adjust to it.
Yeah. And that's ultimately, of course, people work in different ways and different things work for different people. But, ultimately, I think the benefit of distance coaching and the power of the internet is that I mean, yeah, certainly there's an amount of scheduling, and this is how things are done via the
Yes.
blueprint, but also, the big play for having an in-person coach is what we just talked about, that immediate feedback, how that leads
Yep.
into momentum, how that leads into ultimately better training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having that hands-on approach for, I can imagine, the vast majority of people, and your students included, kind of makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Trying to combine the benefits of in-person and remote, and then not having to have the price of an in-person coach, which is usually a lot more expensive.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So when it comes to, obviously we've got nationals, USAPL nationals coming up here soon. What does your 3 to 5 year window of goals look like? Are we sticking with competitions? Are we sticking with USAPL? Where's
Yes.
your mind at?
Absolutely. My goal from day one, stepping into powerlifting, was I want to be the best in the world. And so leading up to now, even the reason why we switched over to USAPL was Team USA. So that is the goal. And so I want to be on Team USA. And so going into nationals, that is the top priority, is stepping on that podium, Team USA. And my weight class is extremely, extremely competitive. So basically, I'm doing everything I can, showing up on that day to have the best day I possibly can for that opportunity. And then after that, hopefully the goal is to qualify for the Arnold, competing at the Arnold. And then if Team USA is a success, then it will be competing next, I believe, June or July at Worlds. And so basically going through Nats and Worlds in the Arnold. Like, that's the ultimate goal, is to have those 3 meets is what I do every year.
Awesome.
That's what I would like. Yeah.
Cool. Well, very exciting stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like you are well on your way. When it comes to, like, training obstacles or setbacks, have you had anything that has put a monkey wrench in your training, injuries or otherwise?
Fortunately, not so much. Since 2000, like the end of 14, beginning of 15, I actually strained my adductor. And so that was something that I kind of worked around. I didn't really fix it. That was when I was like new and young and kind of stupid. And it was like, I can push through it. It's fine. So I basically just adjusted my stances and my technique to get in a range of motion that didn't cause me pain or irritate my injury. So I pretty much roughed that out for about a year. And then we decided that I needed to take some time and rehab and get better and stronger. So after nationals last year, I took a very long off season and focused on a lot of volume work, a lot of recovery. And I actually went to, I worked with Jordan Shallow. I don't know if you know who he is, the Muscle Doc on Instagram. He's amazing. So I worked with him, and he's the one that put together my recovery program for mobility. And it wasn't anything that necessarily hindered my training too much, but it was something that it definitely put me in a place where I wasn't able to get stronger and experiment necessarily with maybe like a different foot stance on squats or anything like that, because it caused me pain. Mm-hmm. So I missed out, on finding a better stance for my squat to get stronger, which I'm able to get into now because that injury prevented that.
Yeah. Well, you can oftentimes learn way more from even just a little minor setback.
Yeah.
Than you would from 12 months of training that just it is what it is, and that kind
of
thing.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things too is, like, with the RPE training, a lot of people bash on it, but a lot of people enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy RPE training because it allows me, like when I'm having a bad day and something hurts or I'm sore or whatever happened, I'm able to adjust my numbers to how my body is feeling. And I'm not always going in the gym trying to hit a number, because when that happens, if you're pushing for, like, if you have to do squats at, 75%, but 75% that day feels like 90%, then you're putting yourself at risk for injury and pushing your body past, you're overreaching of what you should be at that point in your training. So it really allows you to adjust with how your body's feeling, which has prevented, I'm sure, a lot of injuries that I probably would have put myself at risk for.
Big time.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that the human body is not a computer, and you can't just put numbers in and expect numbers out all the time.
Exactly. And the first probably 3 years or so of my training, that's what I did. And I was able to do that. But it got to a point where you start to plateau or go down, go backwards and realize that that's not beneficial for your training anymore. So I think I kind of hit that right at the perfect time.
Yeah. It's the art and the science of training, coaching, getting stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Sammi, you let me in on a little bit of a new piece of goals and projects coming up. Tell us about, and I don't even know the name of what this is going to be, but you say that you've got a new gym coming down the line. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so in Northern California, OSI, Old School Iron, is a very well-known, popular gym, and they just started franchising, and me and two other partners are going to be franchising Old School Iron and opening one by the end of this year. We're finalizing paperwork tomorrow and hopefully be opening in like 90 days, which is the goal. So it's super cool to be able to bring a powerlifting, strength-focused gym to the area where I am, where there's so many powerlifters who don't have that right now.
Yeah, awesome. That's why I was wondering, because I've seen, obviously, from your training highlights, you're always at Old School, and it's cool that you are helping to further the mission, so to speak.
Yeah, so they run all of the USPA meets in Northern California, basically, and then they have their home-based gym in Vacaville, which for me is probably about an hour and 15-minute drive. Mm-hmm. So I'm driving up there. One of my best friends who's partnering with me in the gym as well, me and her drive up there 3 times a week right now to train, which for me, I don't mind driving that far to a gym because the environment's amazing, the equipment's amazing, and we're taking their culture and we're putting into a gym as well. So it's even better to be able to be around that and absorb all that in, so we can make sure that we have a badass gym.
Awesome. You move right in next to Planet Fitness or something like that, and say, hey, if you want a little something different,
we'll probably eat all their pizza too.
Right. Well, that's so funny. And of course, not to go off on too much of a tangent, when it comes to getting into the fitness industry and especially like having a facility and all that stuff, I would have to give things like, things that are easy to kind of dog on. The Planet Fitness, the CrossFit, what have you. Certainly they may or may not have their limitations. It's not for everybody. It may not be for us. But the vast majority of the people who end up on the platform in the powerlifting scene, a lot of them came from one of those places.
Absolutely.
And it may be just because that they were there. So the more options that people have to discover, just like how you did, discover a certain niche, discover a certain side of training, there's plenty to go around. So that's exciting. Yeah,
and it'll definitely be one of those gyms that you walk in and you either feel like you're in heaven or you want to get the fuck out the door. And the people that walk in and they want to be there, those are the people we want. We're not trying to be a 24-hour fitness, or we're not trying to be a commercial gym. We're trying to be a strength training gym of people that are serious, not necessarily even people that step on the platform, but people that want to come in and lift some weight and are serious about their training. Like that's what we want. We want to build a community. We want to build an environment of people coming in and working hard.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Sammi, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Obviously, we're coming up on an exciting last 4 weeks here.
Yeah.
I certainly hope to see you again in Orlando. I'll be there.
Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
and just to kind of wrap up, maybe looking back a little bit, putting yourself into the shoes of the Sammi Johnson who was kind of like super deep into the whole figure and bodybuilding game. Let's say that there's another girl in the same position who may not quite have gotten the opportunity yet to be hollered at by the guys in the corner to come lift some heavy weights. Maybe the best thing that she can do is listen to you. What's some advice, some words of encouragement that you might give someone in that particular scenario who might be super duper hardcore but isn't quite satisfied with kind of where she is and what she's doing?
For me, I would really suggest don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out. Like with social media and everything that we have, you have the reach of so many people. So if you follow somebody or there's somebody even at the gym that's training in a style that is attractive to you or that you're interested in, ask questions. Like don't be afraid of looking stupid. And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why people don't ask questions or they don't do things is they're afraid of asking a question that makes them sound like they're uneducated on that situation or they're unknowledgeable. But we all start somewhere. I started not knowing anything about powerlifting. All I knew was that I liked to lift heavy. So I had people take me under their wing and show me everything. And I asked questions along the way, and that's how I learned everything. And so it's just asking questions, reading, watching YouTube videos. It's doing research to really find that and finding someone that you trust to kind of guide you along the way.
Awesome. Can't argue with that either. So speaking of saying hello on the internet and social media, where can people find you?
At No Pants Sammi on Instagram. And that's pretty much it. I pretty much got rid of all of my other social media stuff because I personally don't like it, but I love Instagram. So at No Pants Sammi Instagram, that's where you'll find me. And then all my contact information is on there. If you're interested in coaching or even just have any type of questions for training or my dogs or food or whatever.
Cool. Well, Sammi, thanks again so much. I will be seeing you shortly.
Awesome.
Keep up all the great work. You know, we need more folks like you, and I would be happy to see you, with the American flag over your head here very soon.
That's the plan, man.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks, Sammi. We will talk soon.
Great. Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
All right. Thanks as always for listening all the way to the end. You can find out more about Sammi at the show notes page at zachhenderson.com/Sammi, SAMMI. Until then, stay well, stay strong.